Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. David Orman, and you're listening to Dr. Orman's Lifecast podcast, brought to you in sunny Central Florida. It is Monday, June 24th, and it is a solid 98 degrees outside. Today's topic is silence, noise, and wolves. I bet you there's a combination of words that you never heard before. What I have noticed by treating people over in particular, the last 3 years, and I don't know how many people I've treated, several thousand, but one of the things is that there is constant noise that affects the psyche. Noise not only from the outside, as in, cars and music and planes, trains, and automobiles, things like that, but there's constant noise being generated internally. It is caused by weakness of the spleen, for starters. When the spleen is weak due to overconsumption of fats or overconsumption of sugars, the body will have a tendency, the mind will have a tendency to create constant dialogues in one's head. Ba, 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 ba. The Buddhists call it monkey mind. It is just an incessant, never-ending stream of nonsensical conversations that we have in our head. We also have a tendency to create horror stories within our head. Oh, I know it's going to be bad. You wait and just say, why that, and yet, truth of the matter is we have no idea. And as I mentioned, a lot of it is coming from sugar consumption. A lot of it is coming from fear. If I keep my mind preoccupied with utter nonsense, I don't have to look in the mirror. I don't have to face the fears that I'm experiencing. And whereas that may get you through the day, eventually it catches up with a person. That's why there are so many different types of issues that are other than physical. Anxiety attacks, panic attacks. There are other reasons for them, of course. Some of them are purely biochemical, but others are, in fact, repressed, suppressed emotions. Depression, I have found in about 75% of the patients is usually not depression, but repression or suppression of various emotions. And it's always layered on top by this constant barrage of talking inside our head. And there are various ways of dealing with that. When the spleen gets weak due to overconsumption of sugars and fats, particularly sugars and sweets, that will make matters considerably worse. When we have foods that are yellow in nature, or an herb, various types of herbs, such as hyssop would be one of them, or there are specific acupuncture points. If you look up the acupuncture points, spleen 2 and spleen 3, which are in the inner portion near the big toe on the feet, that will be a dramatic assistance. The other thing, and it's much more fun, is going in nature. And a lot of people find that they reconnect, that they're grounded, that constant chatter slows down, that today's pace of life is incompatible with the human spirit. And when you go into nature, you'll find that nature's pace is equal to human pace. And so that is also a huge help. Well, my wife, for her birthday, we decided to sort of go to nature, but did it in a much different way. We decided to go a place called Seacrest Wolf Preserve. And I thought it would be a good experience. I dramatically underestimated it. It was one of the best experiences in my life. It is in an area of Florida called Chipley, which is toward the Panhandle. It's a very small, sleepy little town of about 3,700 people. Not much to do there other than go to see the wolves. So this wolf area, this wolf preserve is a little over 400 acres, and then about 25% or so is devoted exclusively to wolves, and they're generally anywhere from 25 to 50 wolves. When we were there were 26, and these wolves are raised there generationally, and they're purpose in life is to serve as an ambassador, as a teacher. The short and sweet of it is you don't need to be afraid of the big bad wolf, but you really do need to respect them. And best of all, you can truly learn from them. And the people who find the need to be afraid of them or to kill them, they are way off base. They have allowed fear and anger to overcome them instead of being open to the gifts that these animals have. So we decided to go there. And when we first got there, there is an open space that's maybe the size of about 2 football fields. And all that's there is one single tree that you park by and wait until your time is ready to go. And then there's the American flag. And in the background area, it's surrounded by thousands of beautiful trees. And so we got there probably a half hour, 35 minutes ahead of time, opened the door, and all we could feel is this cool breeze in a 90-degree day. The humidity was low, but it was hot. But there was something, the only word that I could describe is there was something sacred about this area. It was, if somebody said that it was a former Native American burial ground or something along those lines, I would have no trouble believing that. My first thought is I would love to have treatment sessions there, to do treatment sessions there, or to do Tai Chi or Bagua or one of the internal arts there, because I think you would make more progress there in 1 hour than you would in the course of 1 year. That is how strong and healing that energy was. It was also very quiet. You could barely hear anything other than the rustling of the trees and the occasional howling of the wolves. And it was something in that silence that was very medicinal, that was very healing, that allowed. There's a term in Taoism, macrocosm and microcosm, which basically states what is happening inside of you is reflected on the outside world, and what is happening on the outside world is being reflected inside. So it's very circular. And you could not help but start to get quiet and soft and quiet and soft. And the only thing that you can hear is silence. And it was as medicinal as anything that any herbal, any acupuncture, any pharmaceutical that you can take. It was just, it was beauty is the word for it. It was pure. It was purity, beauty at its finest. And that silence is as healing as can be. So that's how things started. We were able to experience that. We hardly talked, and we normally have a fair amount to say, but we didn't want to interrupt. We didn't want to break the silence because it was so medicinal is the word I keep coming up with. And then our time, we had somebody come up to us and said, hey, they introduced themselves, one of the tour guides. And so we went in this place that looked like a little bit of a log cabin. It was essentially the store where people gather. And there were 2 tour guides and then myself and my wife. And the tour guides, honestly, I thought, oh, here we go. And a half hour of statistics and stuff like that. And I didn't really wasn't interested in that, but in fact, the information was extremely interesting. Wolves can run up to 30 miles an hour for 20 miles and hit top speeds of 42 or 43 miles an hour. There is an island off the coast of British Columbia, Canada, that somehow the wolves got there, and nobody knows how they got there. And there is no food supply, so they have to swim to the mainland, hunt, and then swim back. The distance one way, 7 miles. Interesting stuff. So I was all kinds of excited. And then this lasted maybe about 12 minutes. And then there were 4 rectangular areas. They were not particularly wide, but really long. And it looked like typical Florida, Alabama combination of trees, a little bit of swamp, pine needles, things along those lines. And it was kind of funny because you walk in, there are two gates. You walk in the first gate, close it behind you, and then you walk in the second gate and close behind you. And for about 3 or 4 seconds, my first thought was, I just walked into an enclosure, close the gates behind me with 3 wolves. But when they came up, they started sniffing, they started licking. It was like they were 150-pound, incredibly strong Labrador puppies. That was the personality that they had. They were lovable, they were interesting, they were interested in us. Uh, if you dare stop petting them, they would paw at you. Or one of the most endearing things they would do is they would gently, even though their jaws, the human bite is about, no, I would say 120 pounds per square inch. Contrast that with, say, a pit bull, which is about 300 pounds per square inch. Theirs is just a little under 450 pounds per square inch. So they wouldn't just bite you, they would disintegrate your bones, but they gently, with their mouth, grab your hand and walk you. So it's as if they use your arm as a leash. And we spent probably a little over 2.5 hours going through 4 sections. And the first sections, the wolves, there were 3 of them. They were relatively calm, and each section thereafter, they were a little bit more and more energetic, until the last group they referred to as the rowdy bunch, and there were 5 of them, and they must have had espresso because they were happy and they were bouncing and they were jumping and they were a whole lot of wolf. And it was a wonderful experience to be able to pet them, to see these magnificent, powerful creatures lay on their back, give you their belly because they trust you so much. And one of the things that I felt really, really good about is the guide said, well, that one over there probably won't come by you. She did. That one over there probably won't give you his belly. He did. And so you instantly connected and instantly bonded. And it took, I would describe this as a communion with nature. It went beyond the physical, and I would describe it as a spiritual experience, because you realize you were so connected with these creatures that, most people, including myself, thought, it's something, I don't know if I'll ever see one in my lifetime, yet alone have this opportunity to interact in such a special way. And it was, the 2.5+ hours felt like it was 10 minutes. And next thing I know, we were home, and like, what just happened here? And we were there. And the week afterwards, I fully expected to be on cloud 99, yet alone cloud 9. And in fact, I felt a pretty good case of the blues. And part of it is the contrast between the gentle quietness and magnificent connection with nature and with these creatures, compared to what, so-called regular life is like, with, cars and buildings and development and all this other kind of stuff, paying bills. And that contrast was so extreme that it was a little bit difficult to deal with. Having said that, once that kind of wore off, realized what a gift this was. And I think interactions like that with creatures that seem unapproachable, and then you learn and realize, I bet you nothing is unapproachable. You need to respect it, of course, and you can't do it. I wouldn't encourage anybody to say pet a cobra or something, but somewhere along the lines, but by having these types of interactions with creatures, you learn that you can interact peacefully with anything. You can interact peacefully with anyone. If you can do it with a wolf, you can do it with a person. If you could do it with one person, you can do it with any person. And there were so many beautiful lessons that are starting to slowly but consistently come about from this. I found myself doing things like changing up the gym that I went to just because I wanted a nicer place. I shaved my mustache because I didn't want to hide behind anything. And I attribute all this to reaching a level of connection with these magnificent creatures. I suspect that in the upcoming days and weeks, months maybe, that additional lessons will come forth. But I will say if anyone is experiencing any degree of depression and XYZ medication didn't work, XYZ herbs didn't work, etc., find an animal that you really, really connect with. Wolves have always been, if not my favorite, certainly one of them. And somewhere in the country you can interact with them. If nothing else, find space where it's quiet, either in your house. Make a space that's quiet, that you go uninterrupted for 15 minutes at least, and see various types of ways that you can quiet the sounds within your head and make inside your head as quiet and as peaceful and as beautiful and as spiritual as connecting with these types of creatures. Thank you for listening. This has been a Lifecast by Dr. David Orman, and I will see you next time.